Start off by telling us how you first got involved in golf and
Sure.
kind of how it then led you here to Stanford.
I started as a young kid in Iowa. My dad was a fair player as a young boy growing up, and I always remember lobbying for the chance to go out with him. Like most kids on Sunday mornings to caddy for him and hit a few shots or drive the golf cart. So that's really where I got the start of the game. But I wasn't real serious about my own personal golf until probably midway through my high school time. I grew up in a small town in Minnesota called Austin, and really not much else on the map in Austin other than Hormel Foods and a nice little 18-hole golf course. If you didn't work for Hormel Foods in the plant or in the corporate office, you did something in town that catered to the company in some fashion probably, or you worked in the school system or something like that. So I was able, growing up in Austin, it was a great spot because you could play a lot of other sports, and really in the Midwest that was really all there was to do. So I played football, hockey, and golf. Played a little bit of baseball actually, even in my early years in high school. Thinking or growing up with this dream that I might play nose guard for Notre Dame, as most farm boys from Catholic families do in the Midwest growing up. But I realized pretty shortly into the recruiting process, kind of my senior year, that to play nose guard at Notre Dame, you better be 6'5", and they'll teach you how to play. So on a whim, I decided, well, golf was something I really enjoyed, and it was always the season was so short in the Midwest that I said, well, I really enjoy this. I'd like to see, where it could take me, and if I really had some warm weather to work on my game. And I'd had some good finishes as a kid in the state high school tournament, over those last few years, sophomore, junior in high school. And so on a whim, I took out this guide that they have nowadays called the College Golf Recruiting Guide, and it's basically an A to Z list of all Division I, II, and III golf programs. And so I made a list of like 20 schools, and Stanford was on that list, along with some Midwestern schools and some of the powerhouses like Oklahoma State at the time, or Alabama, or some of these places. And so I wrote a form letter to a number of coaches, and I just said, I'd like to play for you. I'll work hard. Just give me a chance to play. And everyone responded with the form letter, no, we're not interested, except Coach Goodwin, Wally Goodwin here at Stanford. And he was an old coach. He was a basketball coach and athletic director at Robert Louis Stevenson School, and was at Northwestern. And I think he appreciated kind of the Midwestern work ethic, if you will, and some kids that maybe got overlooked at the time from the Midwest. So he said, well, you know what, Conrad, he said, I don't have any spots, any scholarship spots left on the team, but if you can get your SAT high enough, I've got a guy coming in next year named Eldrick Woods from LA. At the time we kind of chuckle about that. We're like, oh, Eldrick, I knew this kid was pretty good, but little did we know, and so he said, if you can get your SAT score high enough, I'm not going to recruit anyone in your class. You're going to have to go through regular admission review and see if you can get in, but I'll offer you a spot on the team. And so I said, well, I'd like to see the place first, but I didn't even know exactly where Stanford was. I knew it was a very good school, and so I made a trip out like in early March of my senior year. I'd already gotten accepted. I'd kind of gone through the process, but I still didn't know much about Stanford, and I came on campus, and it was 75 degrees, beautiful spring day, and there was still snow on the ground back in Minnesota, and I said, this is the spot for me. So from that point forward, I kind of fell in love with the place and fell in love with Stanford golf and all that it represents. But I had a chance to come in, and I was the only freshman on the team that year in 1993-94, and we ended up winning the national championship that year. Needless to say, I carried a lot of luggage and was the brunt of many freshman jokes, but I tell you, I learned a lot that year because Stanford not only provided me kind of this opportunity to see what else was out there in terms of golf, but like maybe you mentioned earlier, like Mr. Tatum said, but also in life. I'm rooming with a guy from inner city LA and a guy from Boston, and I'm living in Brander Hall with 300 and some freshmen with from every walk of life, every thought process. It's just an amazing, eye-opening experience for me. So that 93-94, that was a big school year for me, just kind of in life and in golf. And so, I was a guy that loved a challenge, and I definitely knew I needed to get better or find something else to do. So I worked my butt off with the golf game, and I got better. I ended up playing a couple events my freshman year, and then a few more my sophomore year. I always loved it because Tiger was a freshman my sophomore year here, and I was the sixth man on the team, so I got to take Tiger's spot quite a lot when he qualified for the Masters or the World Amateur or anything like that. So I was his biggest fan. I said, go win and go do what you need to do, because I'll happily take your spot and play with the guys. And that was really what happened with me. I was able to do that, and then my last couple of years played a lot more. Casey Martin, Nota Begay, some of the notables of our program graduated, and so that opened up spots for guys like myself. Joe Kreibel eventually came into play. He was a couple years behind me, and we had just a really unique mix of guys. And so I look back on that whole experience and just really proud of how it all went down. You know, the relationships we had amongst the guys and how much fun we had. So it was really a neat experience. So. So after that, I guess, you know, for me, I went away, kind of going through the timeline here. I went away, graduated, got my degree in public policy at Stanford. Watching all of my teammates turn pro and having success, I said, well, why don't I try this a little bit? And so I went down the professional route and decided to go to my first Q school in 1997, fall of '97, which was one, I believe, of 7 tries at the PGA Q school. Was unsuccessful my first time through, but you know, my game was just getting better and better as we went along. So I ended up playing professionally for almost 7 years, and went to those qualifying schools and spent most of my time on the nationwide tour, or playing in Canada, or you know, you name a mini tour, I've probably played it. I couldn't quite break the ceiling of the PGA Tour through Q school. But I had a great time and met so many people and got to see the world, really. So it was an exciting time, and one that I'll always cherish. And as crazy it is, probably my best year as a professional was in 2004. I had just finished in the top 10 in a nationwide event in Minnesota, and I got a call from Stanford saying, we've decided to go a different direction with our head coach. Would you be interested in coming out to take a look at the job? And so I'd always, you know, had a fond spot in my heart for Stanford and the program, and was a little, you know, disgruntled as an alum to see where our team had been maybe the last few years prior to that, and so I definitely was interested. So I came out, took a look at it, had some interviews, and then lo and behold was offered the opportunity to come in and jump in as head coach. So. Really an unbelievable experience for me, and probably, you know, lucky, really, looking back on it. You know, being the youngest coach in the Pac-10 by quite a few years, and just having no coaching experience prior to being at Stanford was something that probably, looking, you know, as I interview candidates now for an assistant, or if I'm the athletic director and I see my profile, I've, you know, a few yellow flags there, but I think that Stanford's the type of place where if you've been through it, or you're around it enough and you value what it's all about, I think that really helps you, and that's probably been my strength since I've been here. But it's been great. So here we are today, you know, 4 years of starting midway through my 4th season, and really enjoying things. So
that's great. Well, an unusual way to get to Stanford as the nose guard from the side nose guard from Notre Dame. That's wonderful.